What's up, guys? Joey Victory here, feeling a bit under the weather currently, though I have noticed it's making my voice just a little bit sexier than usual, so we're going to try and get through it. So there's been a bit of discussion recently about Melee's tier list, which is equally very cool and also completely insane given that this game is over 15 years old. Seriously, you guys have had almost 16 years to figure this shit out. You know the amount of things that can happen in 16 years? 16 years ago, the first iPod was released. This shit completely revolutionized not only portable music, but the entire music industry. Starting off with the original, which led to the iPod Video, then you had the iPod Mini, the iPod Nano, the iPod Shuffle. Each of these have like 6 different variations. Then finally we get the iPod Touch and the iPhone, the latter of which would, for many people, completely replace the need for portable MP3 players and give way to the era of the smartphone. And in all this time, you guys can't figure out if Marth should be ranked higher than Falco. 16 years, people! Shakira went blonde 16 years ago, alright? That's big stuff, and we're still arguing about whether or not Falcon is a mid-tier.
If he gets one good link to a knee.
Anyways, I've been doing some thinking lately and figured it's time I give my input on a Melee tier list. Not a traditional tier list, mind you, because just in case you've forgotten, I'm terrible at this game, but a different kind of tier list. Today, we're going to find out who has the strongest, the most powerful, the best nose in Super Smash Bros. Melee. So, starting things off from the bottom, we've got our F tier of noses. The F here stands for fucking terrible. There's only one occupant in this list, and that is the Ice Climbers. These guys are just sad excuses for characters and occupy this entire tier by themselves for one reason. You pick the Ice Climbers, you get 2 characters. Now, you would think this might give you an advantage on some of the other players in the game, but instead you're given 2 players and 0 noses. This is just an awful return on nose investment.
The worst trade deal maybe ever signed anywhere.
And they're the only character that have this problem. For that reason, the Ice Climbers will occupy the bottom of the tier list. Moving on to our E tier of noses, we've got Kirby and Jigglypuff. The E here will stand for empty, as these guys don't have noses. The thought crossed my mind of considering these 2 characters as just giant floating noses, but thought that would be too powerful and just a bit unfair. They're considered a step up from Ices given that they're only 1 character without a nose instead of 2, but still overall will lose almost every other nose matchup. Coming in with the D tier of noses, we've got Pikachu, Pichu, and Ness. The D here stands for drawn on because that's all their noses really are. They're like those people that just draw lines where their eyebrows are supposed to be and their husbands are like, yeah, babe, those look really good. They're totally real. Pretty weak, but they have made more of an effort than the likes of the characters below them in this list. For that reason, they get placed slightly higher and will occupy the D tier. Getting a little higher in the list at the C tier, this is going to be the most heavily occupied tier in the list. We've got Peach, Zelda, Sheik, Link, Young Link, Marth, and Roy. The C here stands for compensation. These characters have some self-confidence issues with their noses, so they try to make up for it by having giant swords or pretending to be completely different people and just covering up their nose entirely. They're not fooling any of us. They will win some nose situations and have mostly even matchups with each other, but overall are still going to be towards the bottom of the nose list. Now we're getting closer to the top of the list and moving into the B tier. Here we have Mewtwo, Mr. Game & Watch, Fox, Falco, and Captain Falcon. This is where noses start to mean business. Now, Game & Watch has a pretty strong nose, but it's only 2-dimensional, and for that reason is not placed higher in the list. Now, while Falco does have a pretty big thing coming out of his face, it's technically a beak and not really a nose. We'll call this tier the beak tier, and when you're considering whose nose you want to main, you're going to need to decide how important it is to you that you're playing an actual nose or a dog's nose. We're into the high tiers of noses at this point. Leading off the A tier, also known as the aggressive tier, is going to be Ganondorf. Now, while he doesn't have the biggest nose in the cast, I would argue it is one of the strongest. This thing looks like it could take a frying pan to the face and break the pan. This thing would beat the hydraulic press, alright? It's not fucking around. Bowser gets to this point almost on size alone, and DK's nose has teeth, which is unique to melee noses and noses in general, actually. Rounding out the list, we've got Samus. This I expect to cause some controversy, but it's the element of the unknown that has led me to placing Samus at this point. What's under the helmet? You know, it could be anything. For all we know, she could just be one giant nose.
What if his entire head is just one big nose? Write that down. I like that. His one big nose on Dolph Lundgren's body.
Each of these characters are capable of winning nose tournaments, and while they do have some bad matchups against the highest nose tiers, should dominate the ones lower in the list. With only 4 characters left in the list, we're into the highest of the nose tiers. This is the beginning of the S tiers, aka the schnoz tiers. This is where noses turn to schnozzes, and leading off the schnoz list is Mario and Dr. Mario. These guys have extremely strong noses, and the presence of a mustache only accentuates an already strong nose game. You can think of a schnoz like a shine, where just the presence of a schnoz alone takes what would be maybe a B tier nose into an S tier nose. These schnozzes should dominate the low to mid tier matchups, do pretty well in almost all aggressive tier matchups, but are being held back a bit when compared to the highest of nose tiers. 2 characters remain, and only one will occupy this tier, the SS tier, the Super Schnoz tier. We've got Yoshi. Holy shit, look at that thing. It's fucking majestic. Yoshi gets here pretty much in sheer intimidation alone. Where Mario and Doc use mustaches to bring attention to their schnoz, Yoshi just flops it out there on the table and is like, hey, take a look at this. You have to acknowledge a nose of that magnitude. For these reasons, Yoshi comes in at second highest on the list. Well, here we are. One nose remains. If you've been keeping track, you already know who it is. Coming in with the strongest nose in the game, the sole occupant of the Super Saiyan Schnoz tier, it's Luigi. Now, where other characters get by with having impressive noses in terms of size and strength, Luigi incorporates his nose into all facets of his game. He's coming in with a wave dash F smash, and as he's doing it, he's looking right at the camera like, hey man, check this thing out. His nose is actually what propels him when doing his down smash, as he actually uses the gravitational pull of his schnoz to essentially orbit the rest of his body around it. And if you weren't convinced already that Luigi has the best nose in all of Melee, just take a look at the frame data for his up B. That's all nose, baby. For these reasons, Luigi will round out the top of our list and be given the prestigious award of Best Nose in Melee. I hope this list will open up the discussion a little bit. If you guys disagree with anything, please leave a comment on YouTube, Reddit, wherever, and let's get the conversation going. Melee is a very deep game, and a character's ability to win a tournament is not the only thing we should be talking about. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.